In this true crime documentary, we uncover the twisted case of Kelsey Berreth.
And at this time, Kelsey's mother, Cheryl, would like to say a few words.
I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about Kelsey. She's not the kind that runs off. This is completely out of character. Kelsey loves her God, she loves her family and friends, and she loves her job.
Chief, I understand that Patrick was invited today. Why is he not here?
That is a question you'd have to ask him.
Is he being cooperative?
Yes, at this time, yes.
On November 22nd, 2018, a 29-year-old woman named Kelsey Berreth walked into her local Safeway grocery store in Woodland Park, Colorado. It was just past noon on Thanksgiving Day, and this young mom was simply making one last quick trip to pick up ingredients for that night's holiday dinner. But what no one could have predicted was that these ordinary, everyday moments caught on surveillance cameras would less than a year later be played in court as the final images of Kelsey Berreth alive.
Good afternoon. I'm Chief Miles DeYoung, Chief of Police for the City of Woodland Park. I'm going to give you a brief timeline and kind of bring you current with where we're at right now. Kelsey's been missing and been reported missing by her mother, Cheryl, since Sunday, December 2nd at about 12:37 p.m. Officers were able to contact her place of employment at Doss Aviation down in Pueblo, Colorado, and were advised that they had received a text from Kelsey's phone on the 25th of November stating that she would not be into work the following week. Cheryl did reach out to Kelsey's fiance, Patrick Frazee, and he called her back saying that he hadn't heard from her since November 25th when Kelsey texted him. Reports are correct that Kelsey's phone gave a location near Gooding, Idaho on November 25th at about 5:13 in the afternoon. We've executed search warrants on Kelsey's home as well as both of her vehicles. We are treating Kelsey's disappearance as a missing persons case at this time.
On December 2nd, 2018, Woodland Park police received a call from Kelsey's mother, Cheryl. She was worried she hadn't been able to reach her daughter, and that had never happened before. She asked officers to do a welfare check at Kelsey's home on East Lake Avenue, not realizing that what they were about to uncover would mark the beginning of a nightmare. Cheryl told police the last time she'd spoken to Kelsey was on Thanksgiving morning, November 22nd. Around 9 a.m., Kelsey had called while prepping food for dinner that night. Cheryl said her daughter sounded completely normal, a little busy maybe, but in good spirits. Kelsey even mentioned she still had to run to the store for some last-minute ingredients. 2 days later, Cheryl called Kelsey by accident. No answer. A text came through instead. "I'm really busy. I'll call you tomorrow." But tomorrow came and went without a call. At first, Cheryl didn't panic. Kelsey was a young mom with a lot on her plate. Work, a toddler, life. But when more than a week passed with no word, no return calls despite repeated messages, that's when the unease turned into dread. Right after hanging up with Cheryl, Woodland Park police headed to Kelsey's home. They knocked. Nothing. With concerns for both Kelsey and her little girl's safety, they decided to go inside. The place was tidy. No signs of a break-in. No sign of a struggle. Everything seemed untouched. The only things missing aside from Kelsey and her daughter were her purse, keys, and phone. At first glance, it could mean she'd just gone out. But then there were the things she would have taken if she were gone for days. Her toothbrush, her makeup bag, all still in place. Both of her cars were still parked in the driveway. None of it made sense. Their next stop was her fiancé, Patrick Frazee. Maybe he'd know more. He told them their daughter was safe with him and that he'd had the little girl for the past 10 days. But Kelsey? He claimed he had no idea where she was. He hadn't heard from her since Thanksgiving. That alone made police uneasy. Why hadn't he reported her missing? Patrick said he didn't want to overreact or give the wrong impression. He insisted he was just as concerned as anyone else. In his mind, she was purposely keeping her distance. They had just broken up, and things were tense. Patrick explained that while they had been thrilled about their daughter's birth, the past year had been brutal. His ranch was struggling financially because cattle prices were down. They'd postponed their wedding, scrapped plans to buy a new house. Meanwhile, Kelsey was juggling a demanding job with a 2-hour daily commute, plus full-time motherhood. It was wearing her down. In August, she'd taken a 2-day trip to California alone, hoping to recharge. She came back more energetic, for a while. But the stress crept back in. Arguments followed, and tensions grew. It all came to a head on November 27th. They were supposed to take their daughter to Patrick's family for Thanksgiving dinner that afternoon. Instead, Kelsey ended the relationship. She wanted her personal belongings back, including her car keys and house keys. Patrick said he did what she asked, returned the items, took their daughter. That, he claimed, was the last time he saw her in person. After that, they exchanged a few texts. He didn't think much of it. She told him to give her space and even asked him to keep their daughter longer. It didn't strike him as unusual. They'd agreed to share custody. Patrick showed police the messages, including one that stood out. The last one he said he ever got from her. "Do you really love me?" He admitted it bothered him at the time, but he assumed it was just leftover emotion from the breakup. Later, though, the weight of that message felt different and darker. Patrick told him Kelsey had struggled with depression before. He even took a gun away from her for her own safety. And that same gun, he claimed, was one of the items he'd returned to her on November 22nd. That detail sent a chill through the investigators. They'd already searched her home top to bottom. There was no gun inside. Woodland Park police were growing more and more concerned for Kelsey Berreth's safety. If there was any chance she might harm herself, they knew they had to act fast. But they had no idea the next clue they would uncover wouldn't just point them in a direction. It would lead them towards something far more disturbing.
29-year-old Kelsey Berreth has been missing since Thanksgiving. The flight instructor and mother of a 1-year-old was last seen at this Safeway in Woodland Park, Colorado, near her home.
If she's out there, doesn't want to be contacted, just let us know that she's safe and we'll let her family know.
A vigil Sunday organized by her brother-in-law was held in Washington State, where some of her family lives.
If they see her anywhere, please say something.
After speaking with Patrick Frazee, investigators widened their search, focusing on collecting any surveillance footage of the 29-year-old around the time she disappeared. They also began digging into her phone records. While going through Kelsey's pickup truck, they found a receipt from the local Safeway, dated November 22nd. That caught their attention. Cheryl Berreth had told them during her initial call that Kelsey had mentioned needing to make a last-minute grocery run on Thanksgiving. They pulled the store's surveillance footage. Sure enough, Kelsey was there, walking in just after 12:05 p.m., her baby in tow. Those were the last known moving images of her alive. But they managed to find more. Still images from a neighbor's security camera that also caught part of her front porch. About 80 minutes after leaving Safeway, Kelsey returned home with her daughter and Patrick. Hours later, around 4:30 p.m., that same camera captured Patrick again. This time only with the baby. It matched part of Patrick's account. When police checked the rest, Walmart security footage showed him shopping with his daughter at that same time. And his family confirmed he arrived at their home for Thanksgiving dinner around 5 p.m. But while the video painted a normal picture, her phone data told another story. The last signal from her phone came on November 25th. The same day Patrick received that final text reading, "Do you really love me?" Even more alarming, the signal came from 600 miles away, near Thousand Springs State Park in southern Idaho, roughly 30 miles northwest of Twin Falls. Investigators considered the possibility she'd been traveling to see family in Washington, and something happened along the way. But both of her cars were still in her driveway, and no one, not her mother, not her friends, was expecting her. That left a chilling question. What was her phone doing so far from home? With the case now crossing state lines, the FBI and Idaho authorities joined in. They combed the park for her phone or any trace of her. They found nothing. By now, pressure on Woodland Park police was mounting. Days had passed, and they were no closer to finding Kelsey.
We've created the Facebook page Missing Mother, Kelsey Berreth, as a site that gets her face out there, that's used to spread the word that she's missing. And we'd like to ask everyone to please share it. Don't use it as a place to speculate, interrogate, or to dog the administrators.
Meanwhile, Cheryl and her son Clint had flown to Colorado to help. Staying at Kelsey's home, they made a discovery that would change everything. On the morning of December 6th, Clint noticed something odd while using the bathroom, a small dark mark on the outside base of the toilet. It looked like dried blood. He called police immediately. When investigators arrived, they confirmed it wasn't the only one. Similar spots were on the bathtub, light switches, even the stone fireplace. Chemical tests revealed much more blood that had been scrubbed away. This was no accident. Someone had tried to erase a crime scene. Pulling up the living room floorboards exposed larger, more concentrated stains, seeped into the cracks between the planks. Testing confirmed what everyone feared. The blood belonged to Kelsey Berreth. Police didn't share the full horror with the public right away. Instead, they held a press conference, offering a $25,000 reward and pleading for information. Cheryl made an emotional appeal for her daughter's safe return. But behind the scenes, detectives were almost certain they were now working a homicide. And then came another blow. Idaho authorities reported that despite extensive searches, nothing had been found at Thousand Springs. Running out of leads, investigators went back to basics, focusing on the last person known to have seen Kelsey alive, Patrick Frazee. His phone records revealed a pattern. Around Thanksgiving, he'd been in frequent contact with one particular number. It belonged to a woman named Crystal Lee Kenny. It turned out Crystal lived in Twin Falls, Idaho, just 30 miles from where Kelsey Berreth's phone had last pinged a cell tower. Investigators were eager to talk to her. They wanted to know how she was connected to Patrick Frazee, and why the two had been in such frequent contact during the exact period Patrick's fiancée went missing. When Crystal sat down with the FBI, she claimed she didn't really know Patrick that well. She said that in addition to working as a nurse, she occasionally did cattle work, and that the reason for all the calls was business. She told them that during Thanksgiving week, she drove to Colorado because they planned to buy 2 horses together. But when she arrived, Patrick didn't have his share of the money. So, she turned right around and drove home. Investigators didn't buy it. The story felt manufactured for more than one reason. Why would she drive that far for a purchase like that without first confirming he actually had the money? Wouldn't that have come up in one of their many calls? And there was another odd detail: she hadn't even used her own car for the trip. She'd borrowed a friend's Volkswagen. They pressed her for more. But the longer the interview went, the less she seemed willing to say. The only thing she admitted about Kelsey was that she knew her name from the news, nothing more. The interview ended, but detectives were convinced Crystal was holding back. Digging into her background, they learned she had an ex-husband named Chad. They reached out, hoping for context, and it paid off. Chad told them Crystal and Patrick knew each other very well. In fact, she'd lied about their relationship entirely. They'd first met back in 2006 at a county fair dance when Crystal was working on a tourist ranch for the summer. She'd fallen hard. Patrick was her first real love. Their relationship lasted on and off for years, rocky from the start, and according to Chad, it continued even after he married her in 2010. Patrick never disappeared from her life. He inserted himself into their marriage until, in 2017, it finally collapsed because she and Patrick had been seeing each other again. That revelation changed everything. Crystal hadn't just known Patrick. She'd been in love with him. She'd lied about not using her own car. She'd lied about barely knowing him. And now, she was emerging as a central figure in a homicide investigation. Detectives decided to bring her back in for questioning. But before they could, they got a call, one that would open the door to a series of events straight out of a horror film. Only this time the actors were real people. The call came from Crystal's attorney. She was ready to talk. No one knew for sure. Maybe she found out they'd spoken to her ex-husband. Maybe she decided it was time to tell the truth. On December 20th, investigators sat down with Crystal again in Colorado. This time, from the very beginning, it was clear things were different. Over the last few months, she had driven from her home in Twin Falls, Idaho, to Woodland Park, Colorado, at least 3 separate times, each time intending to kill Kelsey Berreth. The first attempt was in September. She showed up at Kelsey's door with a caramel macchiato, knowing it was her favorite. She made up a story about Kelsey having rescued her dog and said she was there to thank her. Her plan was to lace the coffee with a lethal mix of sedatives and anti-anxiety medication she'd taken from work. But at the last minute, she lost her nerve. She handed Kelsey a clean drink and left. The second time was the following month in the middle of the night. This time she came armed with a metal pipe, planning to ambush Kelsey at her door or break in and attack her in her sleep. She parked out front, stepped out with the pipe in hand, but left when she heard a dog barking and thought the neighbors were awake. The last attempt came just weeks later. This time she brought a baseball bat and a more detailed plan. She decided she would put Kelsey in a garbage can afterward and get rid of everything, maybe at a landfill. She parked, stepped out with the bat, and again walked away, convinced she heard police nearby. Investigators were stunned. If she hadn't gone through with it, then what exactly had happened to Kelsey? And why was Crystal trying to kill her in the first place? Crystal's explained that she was doing it for Patrick. It had all been his idea from the start. She said Patrick had convinced her that Kelsey was an unfit, that she was a heavy drinker, a drug user, and physically abusive toward their daughter. He told her that if nothing was done, he was certain his little girl would end up dead. And he made sure she believed his hands were tied, that if he acted against Kelsey himself, police would come after him immediately. None of it was true. But Crystal didn't know that at the time. She had a friend who'd lost a child to abuse, and the subject made her blood boil. Looking back now, she realized Patrick had been manipulating her, planting the same story in her head until she believed it. In the end, she agreed to try to kill Kelsey, convinced she was saving his little girl's life. But after the third failed attempt, Crystal claimed she told Patrick she couldn't do it, that she wasn't a killer under any circumstances, and wanted nothing more to do with it. She thought she was out. Then came the late-night call on November 22nd. When she answered, Patrick's voice was cold. "You've got a mess to clean up." She was terrified, but in her mind, she was already in too deep. 2 days later, she drove 12 hours from Twin Falls to Woodland Park, again borrowing her friend's car so her own couldn't be tied to the crime. When she arrived at Kelsey's townhouse, panic set in. There was no body, but there didn't need to be. Something horrific had happened there. Blood on the floors, walls, tables, couch, and not just in one room, in multiple parts of the home. Crystal said she put on a protective suit, cap, and booties, then spent hours scrubbing every surface while Patrick called repeatedly, giving her instructions on where to focus next. The most chilling request when he told her to look for a tooth. Anything she couldn't clean went into trash bags, pillows, curtains, children's toys, a stuffed animal, even a book she thought was a Bible. By the time she was done, it was late on November 24th. She met Patrick at a local gas station, where he bought 5 gallons of gasoline. Then they drove to his ranch. In the barn sat a large black plastic tote on top of hay bales. She didn't look inside, she didn't have to. She knew Kelsey's body was in there. They doused the tote and the bags of evidence along with the cleaning supplies and gasoline, then set it all on fire. As horrifying as that was, Crystal said it was about to get worse. While the fire burned, Patrick started telling her how it happened. He said that on the afternoon of November 22nd, after Kelsey returned from the grocery store, he came to her home under the pretense of helping with Thanksgiving preparations. At some point, he suggested they play a game. He went into her bedroom, came back with one of her sweaters, and tied it over her eyes like a blindfold. He told her he had scented candles and she had to guess the smells. Kelsey, trusting him, thought it would be fun. But once she couldn't see, Patrick grabbed a baseball bat and swung as hard as he could at her head. Her last words, he said, were, "Please stop." And all of it happened while their little girl was in the next room. After the killing, Patrick put Kelsey's body in the black tote, loaded it into his truck, picked up his daughter, and went to Thanksgiving dinner with his family, as if nothing had happened. Once the fire was done, Crystal said Patrick mentioned he might dump the ashes in a nearby river or landfill. He gave her Kelsey's phone and told her to take it with her. On the drive back to Idaho, she sent text messages from the phone to make it look like Kelsey was still alive, then destroyed the device and got rid of it. Crystal told investigators she was ready to help in any way she could. She even claimed she deliberately left a few spots of blood in the house, so people wouldn't believe Kelsey had simply run away. The next day, she agreed to walk detectives through the townhouse to point out what she'd seen.
It's 11:15. We're inside Kelsey's apartment with Crystal. Her attorney's with us. When you came in, what did you see?
When I first walked in, I found blood all over the floor. I saw blood up the wall. Saw blood on this wall.
Did you say, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say that you cleaned off some of the appliances?
I did. I wiped the front. There was blood on the front of the dishwasher. There was blood on the front of the stove. There was that cinnamon roll pan had blood on the tinfoil on top of it. There was blood on top of the coffee maker. There was blood. In fact, I had to climb up. There was a blood spatter up high.
How'd you climb up?
I just climbed up right here.
So when you say blood spatter on there, can you go ahead and point to the areas
Here, down this.
Okay, hold on, let me get a picture of it. Go ahead, put your finger. So with this broom, can you point to the area where you saw and clean blood up on the wall. And just hold it there so we can get a picture of that. Okay, anywhere else?
It was, the spray was, from here all the way. I had to clean up underneath here, then it was all down here. There were just bloody footprints all up the stairs. I moved the couch. I wiped the couch off. There was blood behind the couch down the wall. There was a stand, some sort of stand right there by the couch, and the lamp and that basket were on it.
2018, it's about 8:30 p.m. or a.m. and we're up at Patrick Frazee's property. So, Crystal, can you, again, kind of just describe to us right now, first the container. If you can describe the container that we talked about yesterday again.
The container was a black plastic tote that was about this tall and about that wide.
And then as far as the container, the tub, if you will, that that tote container was put in, can you describe that again?
It was an aluminum water trough, round, no bottom on it. I parked it right there. I got out. I spoke with him. We talked for probably an hour and a half. He needed to do his chores. He went in and got his little girl. I carried his little girl around while he finished his chores. He gave me Kelsey's phone and gave me instructions on what to do with the phone. This is where the aluminum trough was, and this is where the burn occurred.
Where is it now, if you can direct us to where Patrick got the trough?
I don't know where he got the trough from.
Where were you? Was it here?
The trough was here on his property. I was down at the bottom of the hill.
Were you present when he started the fire?
Yes, I was.
Okay. I believe yesterday you said that you also collected wood and put into the burn pit?
Yes, I did.
Did you recall, or did you go anywhere else, or did you see Patrick go anywhere else?
No.
What about the accelerant? Do you know that? Obviously.
It was gas.
Okay.
And then he also threw in motor oil.
You had also mentioned that at one point Patrick's mom came out and stood on the deck. Looking over towards the house, can you tell me where you saw his mom?
I could just see her step out between the two trees.
We're going to go ahead and turn the camera off now, and it is 9 a.m.
Thanks to her account, Woodland Park police gathered new evidence. Surveillance footage of her with Patrick at a gas station the day they burned the tote. ATM footage showing the tote in the back of his truck, matching totes found on his ranch, and two key locations. A discolored patch on hay bales, where Crystal said the body had been stored, and a section of ground where they found melted plastic, consistent with something being burned. It was enough. Patrick Frazee was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Even with Crystal agreeing to testify, prosecutors worried there was no DNA or similar forensic evidence tying him directly to the killing, and they still didn't have a body. When the trial began in late 2019, Crystal proved to be a strong witness, telling the same story she'd given police, but with even more detail. She claimed she hadn't known about Kelsey or the baby until just months before Patrick tried to get her to kill her. Patrick, however, became his own worst enemy. Mid-trial, a fellow county jail inmate came forward saying Patrick had tried to arrange the murder of key witnesses, including Crystal, her ex-husband Chad, and even Kelsey's mother Cheryl. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Patrick Frazee guilty of first-degree murder and several related charges. He was sentenced to life in prison, plus 156 years. Crystal Lee was sentenced to 3 years for evidence tampering, later reduced to 18 months after a judge ruled the original sentence unconstitutional. She has since been released. Kelsey Berreth had built a life that should have been just beginning, a life filled with promise, passion, and love. She was a gifted pilot, a devoted mother, and a woman whose loyalty and work ethic inspired everyone who knew her. From the quiet fields of rural Washington to the open skies she loved to fly, Kelsey carried with her a spirit that was both strong and kind. When she moved 1,200 miles to start a new chapter with the man she believed was her future, she left behind everything she knew. But she carried her dreams with her. She built a home, welcomed her baby girl, and embraced motherhood with joy. But 1 year later, that bright future was stolen. And while the truth of what happened would eventually come to light, the loss remains, not just for her family, but for the daughter who will grow up without the mother who loved her more than anything in this world. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. See you in the next video.